childhood there, and he was a very resourceful man. Always figured it out, but again, another fairly heavy drinker. Alcohol was very predominant in our family. On the grandparents' side, especially, it was there was a lot of drinking. My father, it's a tough one. We don't have a very good relationship. I had a great childhood. My parents were divorced at a very young age, so I didn't get to experience any of the chaos in that. Unfortunately, my sister did. She was 4 years older than I am, and from what I understand, my dad was fairly abusive to my mother. My sister grew up with my mom, and I grew up with my father. I didn't experience a whole lot of that. He had a very short fuse, very, very bad temper. He gave me pretty well anything I wanted. My childhood, as far as I remember, we were cottagers. He had a cottage up north, and it was great. He gave me freedom, let me do everything I wanted. And then as I got older, I started to learn a little bit more, and I got to see a little bit more, and really just understand what kind of man he was. And it became pretty obvious lately on what that was like. And actually just recently had to make the decision to not involve myself in his life anymore. So it's pretty tough scenario there. I don't stop him from seeing his grandchildren, but nothing good comes of us being together. So I've decided to cut ties there. My mom is wonderful. She was an accountant. She was actually Wayne Gretzky's accountant for a little while. Yeah. And she was very money smart. My father was not. My mom, some good lessons. My dad, I got to see what not to do, and my mom was more of a, what to do. And I think the most valuable lesson I got from my mom, I was 23 years old. I bought my first house, and she put her name. It was in 2008, so everything was pretty hectic then, and the market opened up for me. I had an opportunity, so she put her name on the mortgage, and she told me if I ever missed a payment on anything, that she would list the house instantly. So knowing my mom is a pretty serious woman, I took that to heart, and I started managing my money very well. And I missed a insurance payment once, unbeknownst to me, because I totally missed it. I wasn't sure what happened. And I get a call from the real estate agent going, hey, I'm going to swing by and put a sign up. And I'm like, whoa, just hold the boat here. So I called my mom and I explained the situation. So she said, well, that's a warning shot. And from then on, I never missed a payment in my entire life on anything. And when I did sell that house, Velko, she gave me a invoice for, boy, I can't remember the amount. I want to say it was like $27,000. And I said, well, what's this? She said, well, this is all the money I've lent you throughout your life. There was a few $100s on there for a truck when I was in high school, and then some maintenance, and then a lawyer I had to hire once, or she had to hire once for me. And all of these things added up, plus interest and compounded. And oh yeah, and I had to pay her that money when I sold the house, and she wasn't having anything other than that. And I was really upset with her for a long time, and I didn't really understand why. And when I become an entrepreneur, the time came for us to build our own crane, and we're talking close to a $500,000 truck. and we wanted to custom build it. And I couldn't get the financing, and my mom flipped the bill for building our truck at a very low interest rate. And I realized at that point that she was just testing me that
Yeah.
entire time. And, it took a long time for me to realize that. But my sister, for instance, my sister made, boy, I don't even know, when she was in Canada, she was a nuclear physicist. And I imagine she made well over $200,000 a year, I would guess. And my mom wouldn't lend her a dime because she was like my father in that, and she couldn't manage her money at all. And her daily driver was a Lotus, and she still had university debt from 12 years earlier. So yeah, it was a very important lesson I learned from my mom, and that helped me through the rest of my life for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I mean, sometimes we have these relationships with family members. Like if this was, if your mom was not in a position to lend you any money, and you knew someone who could, and you asked them for a loan, it would be a completely different dynamic. You would just think,
Yeah,
sure, I lended, you gave me the money, you, I gotta pay you back,
yeah,
and with your belief, if this person would have said, "Hey, if you miss a payment, I'm taking my stuff back," which most lenders would do. Uh, Now you're grateful to that person that led you to uh, creating the self-discipline to never be late, always be on time with your payments. It's this insane feeling of entitlement that sometimes we have with our families
yeah,
as a recipients or as givers. And my parents grew up without too many boundaries, and we were raised without too many boundaries, and like everything goes, and that creates a lot of chaos in
yeah.
relationships, and and the lack of boundaries sometimes creates and breeds entitlement. But what a phenomenal lesson, and what a great teacher she was to you, demanding for you to pay her back. Because if she was anyone else, you would have paid that person back without making a big stink about it.
I didn't even know she was keeping a tally. I had no
Yeah.
idea, like not a clue. I thought when I bought my first truck in high school that that I didn't know that was a loan. I just assumed she was helping me out. But
Do you think you're capable of raising your three wonderful children the same way, or do you need to hook it
uh,
up with grandma and be like, whatever you want, she'll take care of you, and then she
yeah,
does the same thing?
she's not like that with my kids. No, my kids, she spoils the hell out of them.
Wait until they turn 18 and they get served.
Oh yeah, yeah. She
Good.
she didn't she didn't do any of that for me. I had to. Oh yeah, I had to work for everything with that woman, no doubt, and I'm grateful for that. I try and do that with my kids, and then she comes and reverses all of it. So
Maybe she felt obligated to be the mother and the father in your raising, and
yeah,
she maybe decided, hey, I'm gonna make a strong man out of this Ivan kid, and I applaud her for what she did. It's tough, but
yeah,
eventually now you're full of gratitude, not full of entitlement,
yeah,
and that was the whole purpose of the exercise. It's tough to
yeah.
serve your
I,
family
I'm
member.
not gonna lie. There was some times when I didn't understand. When I didn't understand, there was anger. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
in my younger days, I had a lot of anger. Um, a lot of it was not justified, but I felt a lot of anger, and now I know where a lot of it came from. But it was, yeah, it was difficult to understand for a while.
and you mentioned a little bit about the decision that you've made to stay away from your father's life. Is it because he still drinks a lot, or?
No, it's more narcissistic tendencies. I lost my sister. It was just me and my sister growing up, and
I'm so sorry.
she was probably um, one of, if not the most important person in my life. And this past November, she took hers, and it'll be burned in my brain forever. I was in my pickup truck, and we had to pick up my father. This is so she was in Texas, so we had to bring her ashes back to Canada. So we didn't celebrate her life until January of 2024, and a few days before the funeral, my father lost his license to DUI. And then, so I had to pick him up with my mom in the truck, and he took that as an opportunity to attack me. And it was an opportunity to attack me about my part in our failed relationship, when that day had nothing to do with us.
Right.
That day was all about my sister. And it was at that time when I realized that I just can't be around somebody who makes everything about them. I just can't. It serves me. It does no good for me. I just find myself frustrated, and then the way I show up at home after is not the way I want to show up with my kids. So, I have a choice to make, and that was a choice I made, and I'm okay with it now.
I hear you, brother. It's we're going to talk about alcohol a little bit later, but there is a significant pattern that I've watched with people abusing alcohol, that it leads to narcissism, because you're so powerless to the addiction, especially people that are deep in the addiction. The powerlessness creates this victim mindset, and once we get into that victim mindset, it's everyone else's fault, and
Absolutely.
and it leads to narcissism. It's like it happens so many times in so many different occasions. So I see it as a side effect. Um, do you think that there is a chance for you to forgive your dad at some point in your life, even if he
I
fully
forgive.
repents?
I forgive him. I know that um, he is the way he is because of his experiences. I understand that. Um, I don't blame him. I just can't have that in my life.
Mm. This is like a boundary you're creating.
Yeah, yeah. It's a boundary. I'm not angry with him. I'm not resentful. Um, I am who I am because of him. I like me now. I'm extremely happy with who I am. I'm very confident. I'm fit and jacked, and I have a beautiful family. I'm living most people's dream, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm
Yeah,
grateful for the lessons that I've learned through him. It's just a boundary I've set, and I just can't have that. I just can't have that relationship in my life.
yeah.
I love the man to death. I really do. But I just can't have him near me.
I hear you. And tell me a little bit about, you mentioned Capone. I'm from Chicago here, so you say
Yeah.
your grandpa works for Capone?
So let me get this right. My great great grandfather. So it was John Joseph Conlon came from Ireland, and his son was Ivan Joseph. I'm Ivan Joseph
Uh-huh.
Fredette. Um, that's my name. So I would be the fourth, I suppose. The original came here, and yeah, he bootlegged alcohol across Lake Ontario for Al Capone. I live in Niagara.
Mm.
Um, I'm about 25 minutes from Niagara Falls. And yeah, he bootlegged for Al Capone. There's actually a picture floating around our family somewhere of the second or third floor of their mansion, and it was a ballroom. And there's a picture of John Conlon dancing with his wife, and behind him is Al Capone with his wife. And they used to have balls up there. So, and then that mansion, it's a restaurant now. It's called the Kiefer Mansion, Keefer. And it's got tunnels underneath where they used to hide all the booze, and it's a pretty interesting family, no doubt.
What do you think is the difference in the values in people in the 20s and the 30s when it was the dry period, compared to now, where alcohol is so socially accepted and encouraged? I have a friend I've got actually quite a few really good friends that are abusing alcohol, and they have serious addiction problem. And one of them said something like, "I can't trust you because you don't drink anymore."
Man,
It's
that's
like
funny.
it's
I heard
almost
that one once too.
it's it's celebrated, like during the COVID pandemic. Uh, you couldn't go and say goodbye to your parent in the emergency room. You couldn't witness your child being born. You couldn't work in a call center. You couldn't do so many things, but you could go to a liquor store
Mhm.
or dispensary, and that was never touched. It just like, as an observer, I'm like, why are they pushing this but preventing you from going to church? It's like weird, right? The
It's
values have changed so much from we need to be dry. Who knows what will happen in that period where Al Capone was obviously buying all this alcohol from England and Ireland and Canada to supply the local Irish who couldn't live without it.
yeah,
And not just the Irish. Uh, but
everybody.
what do you think is the difference in values? What did people experience so they could take this vigorous measurement to say no more alcohol? It's forbidden. It's the law. It's illegal to drink. Versus now, where not only it's legal to drink, but it's encouraged, it's celebrated, it's socially accepted, and people who don't drink um, have to be sometimes they have to feel like sometimes embarrassed, or maybe not embarrassed is the wrong word, but awkward and uncomfortable explaining why they don't drink. Like of my life growing up with alcohol, and it was a big part of my life. I never consider myself being addicted to it. I've always was able to control it, but it became a habit, a daily habit, and I really slowed down like in the last 10 years, and I completely stopped drinking about a year ago, just because, not because I have a problem, but I did the Benjamin Franklin close. I was like, this thing doesn't serve me at all. Like, what is
Yeah,
the point of this? I don't even, I realized that I never even enjoyed the taste. Maybe sometimes like bourbon and cigar or like something like that, but it still doesn't taste like peach juice, or it's not a pleasant
yeah.
taste. And I just removed it from my life. And many people would be like, why don't you drink? Like, they would, what is the reason why you stop? Did you have a problem? Are you recovering? Like, no, I just don't see any benefits to my life and to my health, and I don't want this to be a part of my life. And going to a comedy club, or going to where there's a mandatory drink condition, or going to restaurants and waiters giving me faces because I'm not ordering anything to drink. It's like almost this uh, pressure. There's a pressure from society to drink. So what do you think changed in our values
Well,
in 100 years?
I honestly think it's by design. You
Right?
know, it's a control method. You know, it's a control method across the world. I mean, every leader can control their population just with alcohol alone. When we're talking values, man, we can use any example on our current culture right now on how our values are depleting. Um, there's hundreds of books on it, but I think it's pretty obvious that it's by design. You know, I don't know how it couldn't be. You look at just the industrial revolution alone, and how the workforce was unionized. Everyone's like, oh well, my belief is that unions weren't developed to help the employer. I mean, what if you have an entire workforce about to revolt and burn down the city? Well, what do? Well, you create this structure where you give these people, you dangle the carrot just
Yeah.
enough to make them feel like they're getting everything they deserve. And then anytime there's a problem, you make them fight for it through this union that they pay into. And then, and then they got to fight for 2% a year. And then if things aren't good, then they go on strike and then they lose all the time. Like, I don't see how that is a benefit to people. They were about to revolt. That's the only reason in my mind that is, and it's a socialist design.
Yeah.
Everybody. It doesn't matter if you're the hardest working guy or the turd that does nothing. You get paid the same. So we know that capitalism works. Like, look at First Form. I mean, man, I was in that place and it's like incredible. And then you look at any government run agency and you can't get an answer on a phone no matter what you do, you know? So when we're talking values, it's just deteriorated since the Industrial Revolution, as far as I'm concerned. And it's just getting worse by the day. Look at pornography. Look at how normal pornography is. It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy. It's across the board. It's not just alcohol, and alcohol is probably the worst of it, like the absolute worst of it.
So you associate alcohol with socialism, with uh, and that makes a lot of sense because I grew
Mhm.
up in Eastern Europe where there's socialism and communism, and um, there's not too many pros. There's a lot of cons, but one of the pros is that when people are getting paid the same exact amount, there's no more competition for into the system, and they start competing on uh, different disciplines like sports and art and skills. And one thing that is across the board, alcohol is very uh, popular, and it's part of the culture because that's how people um, kill their identity. That's how people kill their ambition. If somebody wants to be different, you know, they go to alcohol. There is a connection. I can see the connection
Yeah, it keeps
between
you
that.
it keeps you average. It
And the
keeps
other
you
thing, yeah, the other thing I see when you say it's by design, my wife and I enjoy watching some TV shows sometimes on a Sunday, Saturday night, and we were big fans of that show, Suits, and then we watched the show. It's about lawyers. Have you seen that show?
I've seen bits and pieces. Yeah, yeah.
Then we watched the show Ray Donovan. He's a fixer in Hollywood, and then we watched the show The Peaky Blinders about
That one I saw. I enjoyed that one. Yeah.
one thing that we see is because we both don't drink, and one thing we see is that in every single episode, at any point of time, in all three shows, they drink nonstop. And I'm like, if these lawyers are drinking at 10 in the morning and they celebrate every single case and they pull out this 30-year-old scotch, I'm like, they can't function if they drink so much. And then in Ray Donovan, this guy's like jacked and drinks all the time. He literally drinks a whole bottle of whiskey, and his wife and uh, and the Peaky Blinders are drinking like all the time. I'm like, they're like shoving it in our face. It's
Yeah.
like it almost makes you
Yeah.
want to drink. So
It,
even in
it,
today's TV, it's like somebody telling the producers, maybe somebody telling the producers, "Hey, we want you to push alcohol." It seems
I
like,
think it's deeper and further back than that. It's at this point, it's become so normal that that's just what they're doing. It's almost like it's like building a habit, right? You start off with like almost forced discipline. You think about going to the gym. When I started my fitness journey, I had to force myself into the gym every single day, and nobody recognized me as the fit guy. And then eventually it just kind of became habit. And then everybody knows me as, the fit guy. So now it's like you take me out of that and it's just weird. If I'm not in the gym every morning and my crew rolls in and they don't see me like sweating and spitting and swearing and skipping, music blaring at 5 o'clock in the morning, then they know something's wrong, right? So
yeah,
it's got to that. So now if you don't see it, it's almost like, so I feel like it's become that habit now for even producers and everything. And it was, I I believe what you're saying happened a long time ago. Like,
mm,
if you use what's that, what was that show called, um, with Lucy, hello Lucy. um, oh geez, I can't remember, but we're talking back maybe in the 50s, and it's like they were debating whether to show her pregnant on TV. She got pregnant in real life, and then the actress, and then on TV, they're going, do we show her being pregnant on TV? It's inappropriate
yeah,
at that level. And then they did, and then it's just one thing, and now it's like anytime you see nudity, it's just normal. We've got to that normality. It's just, it blows my mind the more I think about it. Robert Lewis writes about it. He's got the book Modern Day Night, and talks about that a lot. He's a pastor in Louisiana.
yeah. Nudity is normal and in TV shows, but what's a little bit of a turnoff for my wife and I is sometimes it's not heterosexual nudity. Now they're pushing a lot of homosexual nudity, and I'm like, I don't want to see this. Like,
Yeah, just wait a
in some
decade from
shows,
now. Just
yeah,
wait a
it's like
decade from now. It's
so,
it's 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 already starting to become normal.
yeah.
And my kids are asking questions, and there's nothing I can do to stop it other than just tell them, hey, truth.
And you can't
Truth.
see it coming. There's like bam,
No.
and you're like, whoa, I don't want to see this.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we have a TV, but we don't watch TV in our house. I haven't watched the news since 20 winter of 2021. So, um,
yeah, I
it,
stopped. I stopped watching the news in 2008
yeah.
when we were going in the biggest recession. The end of the world was coming, and I used to sell cars back then, and I sold Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep, and they were going under bankruptcy. And we had a sales coach show up, and he said, "Don't watch the news." And I saw my life improving, not watching the news because it was fear based. The first recession when people lost their real estate investments and people started killing themselves, and it
Yeah.
was bad. If you remember, 08, 09, 2010.
Yeah, 2008, I bought my first house. It was, I struggled. I tried the self-employment world.
Did you buy it at the peak when it was super expensive, or later on when it was very cheap?
Well, here in Canada, they opened up a small window where you could get a mortgage with 100% financed mortgage with zero down. So you didn't have to put
Uh-oh.
a deposit down. So I saw that as an opportunity. Everybody said, and now everybody told me don't do it. And I'm a big believer in whatever everybody says, I do the opposite. I've been like that my whole life, and it has served me very well. And everybody said, don't do it. So I went to my mom, of course, and I said, what do you think? She said, do what you want, and do what serves you. And so I did. I bought that house, and I bought it like, at the time, it seemed like a lot of money. It was 200, yeah, a little over $200,000. And, less than 10 years later, I sold it for, well, it doubled. It doubled. And, now that house is worth about $1 million. And man, I'm grateful that I got it in the market when I did, because I look what's happening now. Whew,
Yeah, there's been
man.
definitely growth
Yeah.
in real
It's
estate.
crazy what's happening now. We got land. We sold that house and we bought 10 acres where we are now. I'm a visionary, a classic visionary. So I saw a vision. We bought 10-acre hayfield, and now we just started our house build. I've got I planted about 200 trees. I dug 2 ponds, and it's stocked with largemouth bass, and we're going to be fishing right off of our front door. So I was able to build that in 8 years, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it all started in 2008. And my mom put her name on that mortgage, and I took the leap. And I was alone. My dad moved up to the cottage 4 hours away. My mom moved 4 hours south down to Windsor, and my sister, she moved away as well. She moved to Louisiana. So I was here alone, and I crushed it. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm gonna give you a Canadian joke because I know Canadians have good sense of humor. How do you get 25 Canadians out of the pool? Swimming pool.
How?
You say, please get out of the pool.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd do it.
Because most other cultures, they just don't obey. It's easy.
Yeah, Canadians definitely obey. That's one of our downfalls for sure. And
You know,
talking political world, you can see the effects of being
extremely obedient to the government. Well, I watched these Congress videos sometimes, like YouTube for some reason generates those videos, like when Republicans and Democrats are fighting in Congress. And I'm like, man, this is it's like a TV show. It's like, I know these guys are playing a game, just like trying to piss people off. It's like gaslight people. And just like the way they don't answer the questions, like they have the FBI, head of the FBI not answering an obvious question, or and they just want to piss people off. It's almost like for ratings, for views. And then I watch the Canadian equivalent of that. It's even more fun.
It's
like
painful.
I forget who's the guy on the Conservatives that is always against Trudeau, but it's like they clap for each other once when one side goes against the other, and then the side claps, and it's like, wow, this is such a circus.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a circus. It's interesting. It's painful to watch. I'm a big believer. I think that I think our country should be run by entrepreneurs and tradesmen. tradesmen especially, I'm blue collar. I grew up blue collar. Everybody in my family is blue collar, and you get a sense of common sense. You really, tradesmen really have an opportunity. Well, I'll use an example. You may not be familiar with this, but there's a place in northern Alberta called Fort McMurray. And Fort McMurray is mostly oil rigs and stuff like that, but it's an entire city of tradesmen. And a few years ago, Fort McMurray burned almost the entire city. It was awful. And there wasn't any fatalities in that fire. If that happened here in Niagara, man, it would be casualty after casualty after casualty. That happened in Ottawa with those idiots. Well, most of them, they'd get out of there in time, but they'd all burn.
Wow.
They'd all burn. It's common sense. And in working, having to use the different cognitive functions in your brain, growing up and learning trades and figuring things out, it gives them an opportunity to learn all of those things. But entrepreneurs especially, I think a country should be run like a business.
Yeah. Alberta is like the Texas of Canada, right?
Yeah. I lived in Alberta. It was fantastic when I was there. Those Albertans are great. They're an interesting bunch, no doubt. But they're awesome. It's a great place to live.
Let's go back to your childhood. What is the first conscious moment that you remember when you realized that you exist?
Damn. I'd have to say it would be between two. I don't know which one would be earlier. Both Christmas times. One with my sister and one with my cousin Tyler. The one with my sister would be at my grandparents' house, eating candy. We had one of our family members dress up as Santa Claus, and I don't know, I may have been 4, and the smell of fresh buns that my grandmother made. That or another one would be somewhere around that same time at Christmas time at our original house in town where I grew up. And my cousin Tyler, and we had, that one maybe been a bit later, but both of us, I remember us hiding inside of a chest, like a little, it was a Ninja Turtles chest where you would keep toys in, and we were small enough that both of us fit in there, and we were popping out. That would probably be my earliest memories for sure.
Do you remember like your first thought or conclusion? Like what was going through your mind when you first realized I exist? I'm aware of my surroundings here.
God damn, I don't even. First time I was aware of my surroundings. There was a time. There was a time at that property. It was a fairly large property. I always lived in the country. This one was, we backed onto an orchard, and I remember chasing my dog out into the field, and then watching it die, and I didn't realize it had got hit by a car.
Wow.
The dog got hit by a car and ran out into the field to die. and I watched this happen, and that was like,
A core memory.
yeah, that was a core memory, and that was one of those feelings, like, this is real, you
Mm.
know. I don't damn, I don't even know what age that would have been, but some kind of realization, that would be the earliest that I could think of. But yeah,
Wow, that's fascinating.
yeah.
And how's growing up? How's high school for you? What part
So
of the what culture did you fit? You know, were you you know how when you go to high school, this is really the best way to explain different cultures because people join a clique based on what they like instead of
yeah,
trying to fit in. Sometimes they try to fit in, but it's usually based on interests of what you like most. You join them. So
yeah.
what was
So
it
the
like?
high school was interesting for me. I didn't really have a group, but I had really good friends in lots of groups. I was welcome in every group. I was pretty popular, but I didn't have a group of guys. I didn't like a lot of the people in groups, so I'd pick one or two, and I'd hang out with those guys mostly outside of school. And then yeah, anytime I would hang out with their friends, I was always welcome with their friends, because it was usually the I wouldn't say most popular, because sometimes the most popular were the assholes, and
Mhm.
I didn't like them. It was always the guys that were kind of, that were cool, that were kind, you know. Um, yeah, and I had them in every group, even down to the ones where nobody really liked. I always tried to see the good in people, for the most part. I have my weak moments too, where I was a bit of a jerk, but and then at the latter part of high school, that's when basically my life took a turn, and that's when I was 17, just before turning 18. It was right at the end of high school, just before leaving for college. That's um my cousin Tyler, that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
We were the same age. We were brothers. He was my only brother, basically. We were cousins,
Mm.
but I considered him my brother. He was living with me just before then, and he took his life just before my 18th birthday. He hung himself, and that was basically when I turned 18. That's when my drinking started, and
Mm.
I moved out to Alberta, and yeah, I mean, I was,
You had to face death at very early age, starting with your
yeah,
dog, first friends, then your sister. So
yeah, yeah. It
that's
was that's certainly how it started. And it's funny, because I was never religious until recently, and it was actually because of Arte, uh, uh, John Wagner, to be specific, that drew a few things out of me, and I had a real um, deep, deep inner conversation, and just couldn't ignore it anymore. But my cousin Tyler, God was speaking to me, and leading me down a path my entire life. Tyler killed himself on January 26th, 2003. I quit drinking December 26th, 2020. My sister took her life November 26th, 2023. And then there's about four other dates that are very significant timing within those, mostly with my sister. Her last trip here, we hadn't seen her in 4 years, because she lived in Texas, and with her job, she wasn't allowed to travel over the border through COVID, and I wouldn't get their needle, so I couldn't go see her in the States. And my grandmother died August 26th. 2023, and that brought my sister home. My other grandmother turned 90 at the same time, so both families. She got to see both families, and she got to meet my son. And yeah, that date brought her home, and then yeah, it was just it's just these signs that you can't ignore, right?
Yeah.
And the number 26 is that for me, and it's
Well,
been
I believe that our relationship with God, the ultimate creator, is directly connected to our relationship with our biological creator, our father on
Mhm.
earth. So it's very common for men and women that have complicated relationship with their father to also have complicated relationship with God. And
Mm.
it's really the father's duty. One of the first and most important duties is to walk his children into the truth and connect them with the ultimate father, with the ultimate creator. So I
That's
from
an
very
interesting
early
perspective.
age I believe in God, but I didn't have a relationship with God.
Mhm.
And it was because of my complicated relationship with my father. So I ended up leading my dad to Jesus many, many years later, forgiving him. And I think that's on the cards for you as well. Maybe you would lead your dad to God at some point.
That would be an interesting turn. That
Yeah.
would be an interesting
Well,
turn.
it's
My
it's
sister tried. My sister
it-
tried.
it's because his relationship with his father is preventing him from relationship with God as well. So it's
Mhm.
more of an empathetic move, and to see him as a 5-year-old child uh, struggling, have more sympathy, because probably his emotional intelligence, his development had stopped at early age, and
Yeah.
he's been fighting in a very immature way with
Mm.
his
Fair,
pain. So
fair, yeah.
uh, you've definitely surpassed him on emotional level and maturity and wisdom, and you can see that, and that's why you feel like, man, it's not worth my time. Life is too short for me to deal with this low energy, and right now you're in timeout. But at some point, when even when you become stronger and wiser and your capacity is even higher, I believe you're going to go back to him and save him, because he deserves saving. He's a lost child. uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you can only save somebody who wants to be an
Wants to be
active
saved.
participant. Yeah.
Like J. Cole and that song, "Don't Save Her." She don't want to be saved.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm learning that too through Ironclad. There's a lot of people that I'm talking to, uh, where you want to help them, but you just have to realize that they need to go through their process, whatever their process is.
Yeah,
They need to go through it, and that's part of God's playing or God's will, right? It's you need they they can't a lot of people can't understand what I know or what I see without going through the steps themselves.
yeah,
I had to go through these steps to see the world the way I do, and I can't expect somebody just to go on what I say because I experience it. They have to do it themselves. It's like business. All these people talk about being an entrepreneur and starting business because it's going to be freedom and I'm going to make all this money, and then they get in there and they're like, fuck, there's a lot of work, right? And then they think that, well, in 2 years I'll get this, in 2 years I'll get that, but in those 2 years you see that, oh, this is how it works. You have to go through the process. I'm 10 years in now in our business, coming on to 10 years. Everybody always told me, you won't be anything until 10 years. That's when your
yeah,
business starts. And by God, it's like it's going to be 10 years on the nose for me. We're still riding the red, and we've had profitable years, but but
Yeah.
but you can't scale and expand on the way we were operating. So when we decided to scale and expand, it's like those are the times when we're going to really see some benefits, and that's it's looking like it's going to be literally 10 years on the nose before that starts to happen. And it's remarkable how you know we we don't listen. We don't listen to people ahead of us. Politics, man, this shit's played. The What we're going through right now has played in the past,
Mhm.
and we know where
Yeah.
it leads.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you. It's so true for business. Uh, I've been in business for 9 years, and I have this constant dissatisfaction with me. I feel like I'm moving too slow,
Yeah.
and we've had incredible success and very low moments, and it's all learning. It's all building that resilience that you need to have
Yeah.
to face bigger challenges. But I think that 10-year mark is such a symbolic and true statement, especially going through my experience. Like the
Yeah.
maturity, the wisdom. Um, a lot of businesses that grow in 3 to 5 years or something like that, or 1 year, they end up losing harder and disappear. Most, like 97% of businesses, I think, disappear in the first 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there's a lot that do succeed. It's not set in stone, but it's pretty remarkable that you know the masses. That's a lot of it. That is the way it
If
works. A
if you
lot, a
start
lot.
if you're starting from scratch, not knowing what you're doing,
Oh,
like I
God.
was a great salesman, and I like to think that I still am, but
Yeah.
terrible business guy, terrible leader, and I had to learn these things throughout this 9, 10 years. Like I didn't realize accounting. I've always shied away from accounting and the importance of cash flow and just so much ego and arrogance and just turning clients down. And it's ridiculous the things that I've done.
Yeah. Well,
It's
there's
so many
steps.
learning lessons.
Velko, the big steps that I learned when we're talking about entrepreneurship is like, you're good at something. I was good at climbing trees. I was a
Yeah,
really good arborist. I could climb anything. I could take down any tree. And most guys didn't have the balls to do it, so they would call me, and I would do their jobs for them. And I was that guy, and that's how I got here. But then I realized, okay, I'm a good tree climber, but I'm a shitty business guy. And then I
yeah,
started to look into how to become that. And then the next one was, you know, um, I own a job. I don't own a business.
right, right.
I just own my job.
It
And
takes
then
few
it was
years to
like,
realize
and
that.
then it was like that aha. And there was lots of stuff in between, but now it's like the stage I'm at now is it has nothing to do with cutting trees.
Hmm.
It's all about growing the people.
Yeah,
And but it took me all of the steps along the way to get to here. Like, trees are only the content. The context of this whole thing is how to grow people. It's taking people and building culture and making them better human beings, making them more confident, not just at work but outside of work too. Giving back to your community. It's all of these other things that it's about. The content of the conversation can be anything. Like,
right.
you take any topic and plug it in, and it's all of the other stuff. And there's no way you could have told me that when I started this business. Not a chance I would have listened to it. I'd be like, you're on glue. Right? but again, it's like at alcohol, you tell somebody, man, if you focus on these 5 things, it would be unreasonable for you to fail.
Yeah.
And they just don't understand because they need to go through the process. So like at Ironclad, that's what we did. We made we've put together a program that takes them through that process, so they can learn and understand faster, so they don't have to ruin their life in the past. Because what, the 2 most important people in my life took theirs. And December 26th of 2020, I was faced with that decision too. I was either going to kill myself or kill the old me, and I chose the latter. And when people lose purpose is one thing. That's when they drink. But when people lose hope, that's when they self-delete. And it's keeping people from that. Yes, they have to go through the process, but they don't have to get to a point where they lose hope. And we can guide people through that process. And that's business. That's sobriety. That's anything in life. That's coaching. That's what coaching is.
Yeah.
Is guiding people through their own process, not telling them how to do it.
What does suicide mean to you? How would you define the dynamics and what's going through people in their mind? Because I'm sure you've thought about it for a long time, with your cousin, who was also your best friend and brother, with your sister. You've set countless hours trying to figure out why and what was going through their mind, I'm sure. And we usually ask a question: what are your 3 biggest challenges that you overcame? And I'm sure those 2 are part of the top 3, and maybe there's another one. And I don't want you,
getting sober.
and getting sober, that's definitely a 3rd one. And I don't want you to prioritize them, because they're 3, the 3 of them are very significant. But how would you package the process of suicide? Because I've also considered it in my life, and I think hope has helped me the most. Like, I've never lost hope, but sometimes I've been in situations where I'm like, man, it's probably best if I don't exist. Multiple times, and I don't consider it seriously. I can tell you that I'm not going to do it. But it's the devil, the enemy. He could not reproduce. He does not have the ability to create, and he could not kill. He could only lie and cheat, and he convinces people to believe a lie. So what was going through your mind, and how would you define? And I know this is a very difficult topic for you, but what are your conclusions of how do people actually go for it? Because it's a very thin line between considering, feeling like it, and actually doing it.
Yeah. I think it's just that. I think they lose hope. We've never actually lost hope. I've come close. I've considered it. I've had that inner dialogue. I've discussed it with myself, but I never lost hope. I always had something to hold on to. I think when you lose that, when you lose hope, when you lose that one thing that you're holding on to, there's just nothing left.
So there's got to be a lie that people believe
Oh
more than
yeah,
the truth, and
absolutely,
this lie just tips 1% more, and
absolutely.
they believe the lie because it's a lie, you
It's a
know, like,
series. It's a
yeah,
series of lives.
series of
It's not.
lies.
Yeah. So it's a series of lives. So lives. So it leads. I think it leads up to it. So um, the negative inner dialogue. If you don't know how to control it, and if you don't know how to change it, and if you don't know how to build the other side of it, the positive inner dialogue, then it just continuously you're lying to yourself
Yeah,
consistently, and I know, I listened to the show that you had with Josh, and he nailed it on the head. How can you trust somebody that consistently lies to you, right? if if I'm lying to myself all of the time, I stop believing in myself.
right.
And then you start to believe those lies, right? Because the voice in your head is not you. And that's the mistake that people make, is they believe because I'm thinking it, that must be who I am. That's not the case. Just because you're hearing it in your head, we all have these voices,
Mhm.
you know. Geez, was it Man's Search for Meaning? Viktor Frankl possibly talks about it. Anyways, doesn't matter. It's Yeah, I believe it's Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, that talks about it in his book. But if you start to believe that these voices are you, that's when things get dangerous,
Yeah.
right? Just because you're hearing it doesn't mean it's you. You have the control to believe or not believe what you hear in your own head.
It,
We are programmed. We're like computers. We're
mhm,
programmed
exactly.
based on our experiences, what we've seen, what we've heard. All of this stuff builds inside of this machine, but you can change that. You have the power to change that. And that's like addiction. Everybody thinks that and this is why I hate AA. Like, just so you know, AA is like, I
Yeah,
can't stand it. It's great for a lot of people. Fine. And my
we're
sister
getting
was in AA.
we're gonna get
She's
into that.
Yeah, she
We're
was
gonna get
6
into
years
that. I'll ask you.
sober. Yeah, she was 6 years sober through AA. But, this is the AA, is it's a sickness, it's an allergy. Alcoholism is an allergy and a sickness. Fuck no. It is not a sickness. It is a choice that you're making.
Yeah,
You are choosing to put that cup to your mouth. You are choosing to listen to that voice that tells you to do that. It's
yeah.
it's a decision that you are making. It is not a sickness. It's, if anything, it's a symptom to a sickness. It's a symptom to something much worse, whether it's relationships or, there's five things, right? And those five things, one of those five things is definitely part of the issue that's causing you to drink in your life. And
Yeah,
that,
I can't stand AA as well. I've never been to an AA meeting, but I know many people. I've worked with so many people that have gone through those meetings for 30 years. And there's two things I strongly disagree with. What you just mentioned, uh, like the victimization
yeah,
of alcoholism, that you are a sick person and you're fighting a disease, and they even say it's not your disease, it's your family's disease, like
yeah.
everyone has to deal with it, so now you involve your entire immediate family into this disease.
How many
And then
people can you blame?
there's no graduating the program.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, like, dude, you haven't drank in 30 years, you're not an alcoholic anymore. Like, so there's it's like the worst case scenario, because you don't drink alcohol, but you don't heal from alcoholism. So what is the whole point? Like, if you're
Yeah.
still the same dry, bitter, you don't drink, but if you're still the same bitter victim person, it's wrong. The whole system is wrong. It's like, I think it's more torture than being an alcoholic,
So
because
so
you're
when
actually
I've been to the meetings, I tried it. I tried it. You sit in a circle, and if you want to talk, you introduce yourself, okay? And then you
and
say your name.
after you say I am, that's the most important part about self-talk.
Yep.
And you reaffirm.
Self-fulfilling proposition. It's self-fulfilling. So if you say my name is Ivan and you associate your name, I am, you actually, it's not just I am Ivan Fredette, and I am an alcoholic. So you're associating that with your name.
And
So
here you
you're
are,
doubling down.
you
So
haven't had a
tell me,
drink in 6 years.
yeah, yeah. Tell me
It's so
how,
messed up.
yeah, and it's just, it's just man, it never gets you moving forward from that. So
Because
in
you
AA,
say, I'm so sorry, Ivan. Go
yeah,
ahead.
you stay. So in AA, the goal is sobriety. Okay. And then you keep reminding yourself that you're an alcoholic. You keep reminding yourself. So what's next? Like in Ironclad, sobriety is just the first step, right? Kicking booze is just that's a little tiny portion of what it's all about. Because once you do that, guess what? That's when shit opens up. That's when that door opens up and opportunity is on the other side. You go to an AA meeting, there's very rarely you'll see a dude in there that's fit and jacked and, talking positive and, they're smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and blaming the world about all the problems and how hate is all, and it doesn't matter. It's not. I'm not. I shouldn't be bashing it because it does help a lot of people. However, for guys like us, Falco, for guys like us, it can never work because you want to do better in your life. You want to grow, and to grow, you have to leave shit behind.
Yeah.
You can't continuously bring up the past. You can't. I didn't want to. I'm not going to apologize to people for what I did. What's done is done. If I really need to apologize to somebody, yeah, absolutely I will. But I'm not going to go back and make a list of all of the people I've hurt. That's done. And if I see those people again in the future, they're going to see me and they're going to have two options. They're either going to be stuck in the past on who I was, or they're going to accept the new me and we can have a conversation again.
Yeah. No, there's so many things wrong with this program. I was thinking, and it's a Christian-based program, and it doesn't really represent Jesus' values, because he died to wash away shame and guilt, and all these people are still in a state of guilt. Going through this period of guilt, and every single meeting, even when they're sponsoring people, is they still feel guilty about it, of people they hurt and people that. So it's a failed program, in my opinion. It saved a lot of people from drinking, but I don't know how many alcoholics they healed, because the people who are in the program for 50 years are still calling themselves alcoholics. What is the whole point? So I don't think it heals alcoholism. It makes you stop drinking, but uh, you know, pressing yourself not to do wrong things is not the same as choosing obedience because it's good for you. Those are two
Yeah.
different things. Not suppressing yourself from not uh, cheating because it's bad to cheat on your wife, versus choosing your wife every single time, are two
Yeah.
different states of mind. You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
uh, so
Absolutely.
it's it's a form of victimhood, and it's powerless, and some of these guys would be like, I'm like, dude, you've been clean for 30 years. Well,
Yeah.
I could fall right away. No, you can't. No, you're not
Yeah.
gonna fall. Like there's it's
You keep telling yourself that, and you will. You
right,
know, that's
exactly.
and that's it. Like right now, so the way I've designed
Yeah, tell us about what's
our
different
program.
in your
Well,
program.
so what's different about ours is we call it armor. So the idea was, um, when Tyler took his life. Okay, when I decided to quit drinking in 2020, December 26th of 2020, it was Boxing Day. I came out of my bedroom hungover like every other day. Cartoons playing. My daughter, she was 5 at the time, laying on the couch. My son was just born that July, and you know, I'm like, this has got to end. I've got to. I've got to kill something. I've got to kill me, or I got to kill the old me. That's it. It can no longer happen. So for me to kill the old me, I needed to protect myself. I didn't just have to quit drinking. I had to protect myself, that if anything happened in the future, that I wouldn't revert back to it. Because what's the point of stopping
Yeah.
if I have these vulnerabilities, you know? And um, so I wanted to. I searched and searched. I looked at AA was the first thing I tried, and I was just like, this is crazy. This is madness. So there was nothing out there. So basically, I made this structure, um, and then when my sister took her life, it was tested, and it was tested to its fullest extent. And a week after, so I had to fly down. My sister's husband got into methamphetamine, who she met at AA, and that was kind of the thing that led her down her path. And there's a lot more to the story, and he basically didn't let us access anything of hers, and she tried to leave it all to me in her suicide note. Anyways, it's I'm down in Texas, living at a hotel with my mom, trying to get this guy's signature so we could get my sister's body out of the freezer,
Mm.
so that we could get her cremated as per her wishes and bring her home. He's on drug binge. We can't get him. We can't get into his house, anything. It's awful. And if we don't get this signature in a certain amount of time, they're going to bury her body in Texas,
Mm.
because that's the way it works, because the husband has to sign off on the paperwork. My mom comes to me. We're down there for about 7 or 8 days. We finally got the signature. I'm up in the morning in the gym at 6 a.m. I'm going to my mom's room and saying, Mom, let's go. We got work to do. Let's get this shit sorted out. And I'm focused. I'm laser focused. My mom says to me, she goes, if this happened 3 years ago, I would have lost both my children. And that right there, I knew that I had to package what I made, and I had to give it to other men so that they could build this armor. So what
Yeah.
it is, Velco, is I made a structure, and I call it learn to build armor. Learn are my core values. It's leadership through action, evolve to greatness, accountability to oneself, resilience in the face of adversity, and no surrender.
Mm.
That's the acronym for
I love
learn.
it. I
Those
love
are
it.
my core values. Now I use those to I use those as my decision makers. Okay. Those are my guiding star, my North Star, call it, on the 5 parts of my life that I focus on all of the time, consistently. And that's armor, aspirations, revenue, muscle, oneness, and relationships. If I use my core values to make decisions on those 5 things actively every single day, it would be unreasonable for me to fail. Right? So I set my aspirations. Those are goals. I work on them every day. I set them, I follow them, and I revisit them regularly. I literally break them down every single day. Revenue. I make sure that I make enough money, not just enough money to get by, but I want to be able to eat the food that I want to eat. I want to be able to take my family on the trips. I want to be able to not be in debt and owe the man one day, right? Muscle. This is your health, your fitness. You know, what kind of shape are you in? What you're consuming. You know, are you in a state where you can defend yourself, where you can defend your family, where you can defend your community? Oneness, you know, oneness is this is confidence. This is your mental state. This is your mental and emotional hygiene. This is your faith. Your faith falls in oneness too. You know, this is all of everything inside your mind that you believe. And then relationships. This is all the people in your life. Who are you surrounding yourself with? This is not just keeping yourself with good, positive people, but this is also taking a look at the toxic relationships, right? Like, you know, I had to make a really hard choice in my life lately. That's because I looked at that relationship and I used my core values to make that decision. You know, can I lead through action in this relationship? You know, I can't, because when I leave a conversation in that relationship, I'm not a good leader at home. You know, can I evolve to greatness with this relationship in my life? The answer is no. You know, accountability to oneself doesn't really fall in that one, but resilience, you know, I built a lot of resilience through that relationship.
It actually does, though, because accountability to your core values is
Absolutely. Yeah. The big thing was what I guess with accountability in that relationship was holding myself accountable so I didn't lose my temper, keeping my own emotions in check. It was very difficult in that relationship. You know, he brings out the worst in me, the absolute worst.
The person you killed.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then N is no surrender. You know, I will not surrender to those emotions. I will not surrender to that kind of narrative. And yeah, so basically learn to build armor. And if you can master those 5, and as humans, we have ebbs and flows. You know, we're gonna experience hardship in life. It's inevitable. Somebody will die. You will lose money. The economy will crash. Whatever it is, you'll have to care for somebody. Something tragic is going to happen in your life, and you will not be able to be your absolute best all the time. But the idea is not to go deep, not to lose yourself, not to lose faith, not to lose purpose, and certainly not to lose hope. You know, and the idea is that we're constantly building and we're constantly growing, and we can, you know, Ed uses the comparison to a thermometer on the wall, right? Your temperature is going to go up. You're gonna be awesome. It's not dropping below what you set the thermostat at. You know, we set that thermostat at 72 degrees. You don't want to drop down to 68. And if you do, you catch it and you get right back up. But it's consistently moving that temperature set from 72 to 73, 73. So it's raising that standard all the time and improving. And that's why I said alcohol, getting sober, is only the first step. You know, once you become sober, that's not even part of the conversation anymore. Right? The rest of the conversation is what's next. The best of me has yet to come. And I will tell you that until the day I die, because I will always improve. You know? And that's what it's about. That's what building armor. And that's why it's ironclad. Right? We're building armor. We're protecting ourselves.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. Exactly. exactly. I like the axe myself because it's I'm a Viking for one, and two, it's a tool that you can use in the garden or a weapon that you can use in the battlefield. You know, it's what a man should be. You know, you should be able to defend yourself, your family, and your community, but you should also be humble and honest. You know, I'm not a big fan of the word vulnerability. You know, I think it's used too much, and this may this may cause a lot of controversy in some of your listeners. But my view on vulnerability is like when you're talking about battle, you know, it's what are your vulnerable points? That's when shit goes wrong. You know, you got to protect those vulnerable points. It's honesty and humility, because if we're honest, then we're being truthful. Like, I don't know everything, you know, or I made a mistake. It's not, you know, it's not crying. You know,
Yeah.
crying is yes, we can cry, but it's like vulnerability is weakness to me, and humility is, you know, it's the ability to tell somebody that I don't know what to do here, you know. um
It's a combination of honesty and humility, and
yeah,
it definitely, it's a word that means that it exposes you of uh, become weak, but it's still at the end your choice. So it's kind of like opening the wound uh, for germs and for all the risk that you can take. It's
yeah,
vulnerability, but it also has this negative meaning of weakness that that could be taken. You
yeah,
know,
and I think you can accomplish everything that you need to get across with honesty and humility.
there's another word that I really love called meekness,
Hmm.
and that word is it comes from the Bible. Jesus was described as meek, and there was three types of horses in the Roman Empire. The first type of horses were horses that were used for work. Then the second type of horses are horses that were used for the races with the coops. And the third type of horses were the meek, and they were used for war. And
Mm,
those horses were so obedient that they would jump in the fire. And you've
mm,
seen some movies in like 300 and
yeah,
Troy where the horse would actually save the life of the soldier, of the warrior, and just the connection of the horse and the warrior, it's almost an extension of the warrior. And these horses would proudly die in a battle for their warrior. And those
yeah,
were the meek. So if you are meek, and it really connects with your community loyalty, it because sometimes some people might say, what a dumb horse dying for his warrior, he could protect himself, right? So that's where the vulnerability kicks in. Like,
yeah,
um, the word meek I love because it's a combination of all these great values, and it does include blind loyalty. It's like,
yeah,
this is what I've agreed to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
yeah,
This is my purpose.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but
Yeah,
I agree that there is a slight flavor of weakness, and you can't stand weakness, and you protect yourself from weakness. So I understand the way you see the word vulnerability, because you almost connected probably to surrendering, to giving up, you know.
and I'll never surrender.
And that's
Never
why
surrender.
you're just,
Yeah, yeah,
I love words.
yeah.
I go
It,
deep in the words.
and in all honesty, Velko, a lot of people live their lives without values. When we started this conversation, that's I love that you went down that road. Is like my values, my core values guide me. You know,
I mean,
they were a big part, not a big part, the biggest part of this entire journey was being able to have core values, develop those core values, and follow them and use them to guide. When I quit, it was like there was a lot of internal battles, tons of internal battles. And the way I got through those was reading and listening to people like Andy. I had the opportunity to meet Andy at First Form once, and I told him, I'm like, you saved my life, because he was the one that introduced this idea of core values to me. And looking back now, if I was to say that again, I would probably change what I said. And I would say, you gave me the tools for me to
Yeah.
save my own life, and I almost regret saying it now, because I was like, I was thinking about it after, because Andy, you know what Andy's response was? He's like, no, man, you did this.
Exactly. I was gonna
Your own
say
way. And I was like,
he's humble enough to tell you that, not to take the credit for it.
yeah, I was like, fuck, I totally said that wrong. So, but yeah, it's a lot of people don't have core values. A lot of people don't have any way to guide them, because the only thing that's out there, as far as most people know, is AA. And there's the 12 steps. I mean, the first step is to admit you're powerless.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Was the very first thing, and for me, it's the complete opposite. We are in total control. We just have to understand how.
The
That's
the
all.
only good thing about it is that there's enough people. They always manage to gather enough people. So when you get in there, you're like, all right, I'm not alone in this. If this guy's going through this, then I'm not the worst. So it's a good first step. But half of the shit they say, you gotta just ignore. And I'm not a big fan, just like yourself. Um, we can talk for days, brother. Like I
Yeah.
love your values and I love the mission you're on, and your story is quite interesting. There's a book there, there's a movie there, and I encourage you
God,
to write.
God has been, God has been leading me through to a divine purpose
Mm.
for a lot longer than I've known. And it all started January 26th, 2003. That's when it
Well,
started. And God's been leading me to this. I'm a believer too. There's two things that I'm a big believer in now that I wasn't before. One, that everything happens for you and not to you. And I could not understand how my sister's death was for me, but now I know it's for this purpose. She was an alcoholic. She did AA. She could never leave that victimhood culture.
mm,
Never. It led her to meeting her husband. That path led her to where she is now. And where she is now is, well, I carry her ashes with me all the time, and her ring, her graduation ring from her university in physics. She had nuclear physics. And big believer. It's all through numbers that she and God are talking to me. And the other one is that people need purpose. Men especially, we need purpose. And if we have time, I've got a story for you that that shows purpose at its
sure.
finest. But um, so we are much like canines, and this story was very powerful once I realized what was going on. So we have Great Pyrenees where we're in the country. We have a lot of coyotes, and so we have Great Pyrenees dogs. They're very large. They're meant to kill coyotes or wolves, actually. But so at our old house, we're on this very small property. It's still in the country, but a very small property. People are in and out of my house all the time. We're drinking beer in the shop. There's no real threat. And I've got this Great Pyrenees Jax. He was my buddy. He was an awesome dog, but I thought Jax was broken, and he didn't bark. He had no voice. Like a Pyrenees that doesn't bark is like non-existent, right? I'm like, never heard of this thing. And he would dig holes. He would dig holes the size of Volkswagens. Like, I mean, massive holes. And he would chew everybody's shoes. Okay, so this forever, never bark at anybody, dig holes and chew shoes. So years go by, and we moved to this new property in 2015. And we've got 10 acres, and to the north of us is a few hundred acres of nothing. We have no neighbors on that side, and it's absolutely beautiful. And there's a bush lot down the way, and in that bush lot is full of coyotes. At nighttime at our place, all you hear is coyotes. And when we moved to this property, within 3 days, my dog starts barking. My dog stops chewing shoes, and my dog stops digging holes. And then I thought about it, and I realized at our old house, my dog had no purpose. Pyrenees are literally, their purpose is to protect thousands of acres and sheep from wolves. They're protectors. They literally protect sheep from packs of wolves. They have the second hardest bite of any canine on the planet. It's almost as much as a crocodile.
Wow.
And he had no purpose. So when you have no purpose, you have no voice, and you dig yourself into holes. When we moved, my dog had purpose. The coyotes were there. The threat was there always. My dog had purpose. He found his voice, and he stopped digging himself into holes. Man, when I realized what was happening with my dog, I didn't realize it at first. Like, this is not something that came to me when I saw this happening. When I saw he started barking, we didn't know what happened. This realization didn't happen until I had to put him down. So I had to shoot him last year, and I think it was July or August of last year. We had to shoot Jax. He just got old and sick. You know, country dogs living outside all the time. They have a pretty hard life. And I realized, I'm like, this whole time, because I'm sober now at this point, I'm like, this whole time, I had no idea what was up with this dog. And we're out back. It's dark. We got the flashlight on him, and I'm holding the rifle, and I'm going, man, for one, I couldn't do it. I had to get my buddy to do it. I was there, but I got Matt to do it, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, and I'm going, he was lacking purpose. Until we moved, he was lacking purpose. I was no different. I had no purpose. I was just drifting through life, accepting the fate that was happening. I was just letting life happen. And when you let life happen, you miss out on all of the good things that life provides. When you are not an active participant in picking up the signs that God is giving you, you're missing out on so much opportunity. And that's all everybody is doing when they're drinking. They lack their purpose. They don't know what they're here for. and they're just letting life happen to them
Yeah,
rather than for them.
they bench themselves.
Yeah. That evening, I was like, he is no different than I.
Man,
I'm
that's
the
a great
exact
story.
same as this dog.
I'll
Yeah.
remember that story for the rest of my life. That's a good story.
Yeah. Found his voice and stopped digging himself into holes.
The last question for today is,
Yeah.
if you could go back to any
Mm.
point in your past with the DeLorean, you've seen Back to the Future,
Yeah.
and if you're able to do something, take action, and change some circumstances, or just observe a certain situation in your past, where would you go?
I wouldn't change anything because that might alter who I am now, and I really like who I am now. I needed to experience everything I experienced in my life to make me who I am. So, observe. I would like to observe possibly this is a tough one. This is just as tough as the first memory. I would probably, knowing what I know now, I would want to observe from the outside looking in, on what kind of man I was to my wife before I quit drinking.
Mm.
You know, my passive aggressiveness, I would like to see that from the outside, how much of an ass I acted like, just as a reminder that I would never want to go back to acting like that ever again. I would want to, I know the power now of looking in the mirror and talking to the man that I'm looking at, to see that man act like that.
Yeah,
Man,
you're probably gonna stop it. You're like, I can't watch this shit no more.
yeah, right. Yeah, I would want to observe that just as a reminder to keep going and keep helping people to not be like that.
Well, Ivan, it's been such a great pleasure to get to know you and learn your story and just have this amazing conversation. I feel that you are definitely living your purpose. So I encourage you to keep going, to be bolder, to go deeper. There are many men out there that need saving, and they need your inspiration and your practical guidance of how to uh, take the steps, not just to kick the booze, but to also become the elite version of themselves. I'm a huge fan. Let me know if I could help with anything. It seems like we are on a similar mission, just using different tools.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'd love to have you as a guest again, um, sometimes in the future. Uh, I want to recommend a show that I did with Eddie Wilson. He's got a very similar story to yours, and he's got this incredible wisdom. So I think you will enjoy watching one of our episodes with Eddie Wilson.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you. I love you, brother. Keep rocking. Keep living your purpose. And it's been a great pleasure.
Yeah, Belko, man, I can't thank you enough. The first thing I do want to say is thank you, and I'm grateful. And time is the one non-renewable resource that we all have, and I appreciate you giving me some of yours.
Oh, of course, of course. We'll see you again.
Absolutely.
See you
Thank you,
again.
brother.
Thank you. Make it a great day.